Well, Rose has turned on the recording, so why don't we go ahead and get started. I'm Scott Loveridge, Director of the North Central Regional Center for Rural Development, and your host today. Pleased to welcome Trudy Rice, who's our speaker. She's an Extension Community Vitality Specialist at Kansas State University Research and Extension. She's been with K-State for her whole career, and she's been active in the SARE, Sustainable Agricultural Research and Education Board for the North Central Region, and also served as an extension liaison to the National Association of Counties. And she's got a partner here too with Michelle Walk, who's an extension educator with Michigan State University, and I think Trudy's going to do most of it. I will be monitoring the chat box, so if you've got a question during the talk, then please just enter it into the chat, and I'll make sure that that gets answered. And with that, we'll just turn it over to you, Trudy.
Thank you very much, Scott. As Scott shared, this project dealt with the opportunities and challenges of sustaining a community food system. And as Scott shared, I'm a community vitality specialist. I am not a horticulturalist. I am not a nutritionist. So basically, we were proposed to approach the issue to try to determine if a community used good, sound community planning principles. Did that increase the likelihood of the sustainability of their local food system? As Scott also shared earlier, it was myself on this project representing Kansas State Research and Extension, as well as Michelle Walk, a colleague from Michigan State University, and Michelle is located in the UP of Michigan. What we tried to do is complement each other in that we made sure we weren't conducting the focus groups in those communities that we were most familiar with. So we traded that responsibility as we were going about our planning process. What I'd like to share with you a little bit today is basically review with you what our research approach was, share those results and findings related to best practices, and then if any of you have any input related to future research needs as it pertains to how we help these local communities sustain their local food systems once that initiative has started. I've been working some with the Agricultural Marketing Service, Farmers Market Promotion Program grants, and Local Food Promotion Program grants. And there's a slide in their materials that really shows that it's getting more and more difficult to come up with the big idea anymore. Most of the low-hanging fruit has been picked off, and the increase in local food systems is not nearly as steep as it was in the previous 10 years. And so we are concerned about sustaining those that are already there. So basically our approach was first to talk about the type of food systems that we wanted to look at. And what we wanted, again, we wanted to find communities that basically were promoting a local food system, whatever that reason might be, and we wanted communities that had broad representation. Then we identified our communities, and what we came to decide to identify were that we wanted to do 8 individual food systems. We did 4 in Kansas. We did 2, we proposed to do 2 in Michigan and 2 in Wisconsin, and I'll explain that a little bit later. The one in the UP of Michigan was a very large system in that it covered the whole UP, and so again, I'll talk just a little bit about that. Excuse me. Then we went into each of those communities and conducted a focus group with questions related to their planning process. Those focus groups ranged, we tried to keep them to 6 to 10 people. In a couple of places, we did have more than 10 people actually show up with them. We identified the key people in those communities and then asked that they have a broad representation when we came to conduct those focus groups. And then, I am so sorry, it's allergy season in Kansas. And we analyzed that data for those best practices. Our expected outcomes of this project, our short-term knowledge was just basically best practices for sustainability, ultimately to sustain those local food systems. And then the big piece was that we could increase, show that the process had increased community capacity to not only deal with this issue, but additional issues. One additional outcome that I have benefited from this project is the work of cooperative extension through the regional development centers and NIFA with Agriculture Marketing Services grant program, in that these have been excellent examples and ideas and best practices that I've been able to share as we have conducted those grant writing workshops this month. The resources that we used to refer to, the first one is the Food Systems Profile, and that is out of Wisconsin. And if you have not used this piece, we found it very valuable. It's for any of the counties in the North Central region and all of the states. You simply type in your state, you type in your county, and you get a comprehensive profile. That data, most of it was taken between 06 and 2011, and it shows percent of increase and that type of thing. I certainly hope that they update that soon, because again, we found this a very, very valuable resource in talking about these communities, where they were at, how they've improved, and where they want to go. Another one that we used, since we were approaching this from the community development standpoint, was the community capitals model, talking of the 7 capitals that are important for healthy, sustainable communities. And there is another resource related to these community capitals model, and it is the Community-Based Food System Assessment and Planning, which was produced in 2011 through Southern SARE. And it is an excellent resource if you were working with a community to really help them develop their local food system using a research-based community planning process. We also use the Food Systems Wheel and a few other things, but those are the main ones that we were using and asking communities if they had used. In those focus groups, we basically had 4 components to them. Most of them lasted about 90 minutes to 2 hours. We wanted to find out about what the background and history of their projects were. And we had a variety from a community that had been active in this local food since the 70s to one that was very, very new. In fact, they had just established their Food Policy Council 2 days before I came. We talked to them about what was their community planning process, what was the involvement of the community, who led this initiatives, those types of things. We asked them about their plans for sustainability, and then we also gave an opportunity for individuals to give their responses and comments so that we could compare if they were kind of on the same page within their community, or if there was a variety in how they were feeling about their project. So during that background, we wanted to know about their organizational structure. Was it formal, informal? What did it look like? Was there availability of local food before the project? Does this project attempt to address a specific need? And then the date that they started. In the community planning process, we wanted to know things such as, did that community actually do a community needs assessment? And if so, how did they approach that? Do they actually have a written vision and mission? Identify goals? how they determine what projects they're going to work on, how they might define success, and do they actually celebrate success, and then where are they in relation to what their long-term goals were for their local project. Sustainability, we asked them, what did you see changing as you move forward? Who are the partners for this project? What is their current funding model, as well as previous and future funding model? And then what did they anticipate to be their biggest challenge as they move forward? And then those individual comments that I talked about there. And we did find that obviously not everyone was on the same page in each of those communities related to the success of their project and the future of their projects. The first community that I want to talk about today is Allen County. It's in Kansas. It's in our southeast corner of the state. It is a county that has one of the highest food insecurity rates in our state, and their health status ranking is 76 out of our 105 counties. Their initiative was started as a result of the fact that their locally owned grocery store, their last one in their county seat of Iola, had changed and had closed, I'm sorry, and so the only availability of groceries in their community was through a large corporation, and they felt like they were losing that local feel and that availability of that. They also had a very, very new farmers market. It was in its second year of operating. Their initiatives basically that came to their project when they started that project was basically, I would call them community organizations, in that they were the Farm Bureau, they were their local foundation representatives, community members that were concerned about the health and well-being of the people that lived there. There were a couple of producers that participated in this forum, and it was very obvious in visiting with them that there had not been a lot of communication between the producers and the consumers. They had taken the approach that they wanted to identify what they call a food policy council. And the reason for the Food Policy Council was to try to organize this a little bit more. The Food Policy Council was established by the Allen County Commissioners, and they did have a resolution that was signed and everything. So they were doing very good on that initiative. One concern in this community is the reason for the Food Policy Council and some of their initiatives was actually being driven by an organization we have in Kansas called the Kansas Health Foundation, and that's their suggested approach as they move forward. I think on this one, I want to basically close by saying their team represented school administration, businesses, food pantry, restaurants, the farmers market organizers, and then other commodity groups within Allen County. But again, they were our newest project. The next one that we went to was Brown County, and Brown County is in our northeast corner of the state. Their project, basically, the background of the local food system in Brown County was that they had been doing lots of projects. They did not have a comprehensive approach. They did not have identified goals. They had just been doing this project versus this project versus this project, until an opportunity came to them in that the community college in that area had established a working farm and was wanting to do some agriculture production classes related to local foods. And the Iowa tribe of Native Americans was in that area, and they were also very, very interested. So that was the result of them wanting to do some more work in this area. They are they're kind of unique in that they're very close to our Kansas City metropolitan area and close to Nebraska's metropolitan area of Omaha and not too far from Lincoln. So they were also looking at establishing a food hub. What I think was a little unique about Brown County in that their grocery store was at risk of closing. So they started a farmer's market in the parking lot of the grocery store, and the owner had decided that that was not competition. Those same people would come in and shop in his store, and as a result, he's very interested in partnering to be the aggregating site for their food hub. You can see here, I think that pretty well summarizes what I shared about that county. The next county in Kansas was Douglas County, Kansas. Douglas County is Lawrence, right on the peripheral of the Kansas City metropolitan area. Douglas County is also the site of, as I refer to, that other university, the research university, not the land-grant university in our state. Douglas County has a very, very long history of involvement in the local food system. That's my home county. I came here in the late 70s, and at that time they already had what we refer to as the community MRF, which was a locally owned community grocery store, and have built upon that. Our farmers market here is at least 25 years old. It's 3 days a week, Saturdays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. They have most recently done a food hub study and are in conversation with Brown County, knowing that probably both places should not be a food hub for this area. Another interesting issue about the Douglas County one is, like I said, they've had a long history of local food systems. However, about 10 years ago, they did establish a food policy council, and that is their organizational structure. But it was a result of a land use issue, a need, and a desire of the local decision makers to preserve some of our most fertile farm ground, which that ground now has been purchased by the Delaware tribe. So we'll see where that goes. Michelle Walk was actually the one that came to do the interviewing here in Douglas County. And in processing that information after we talked, the interesting thing about this one is, even though it's organic and has a long history, I don't mean organic farming, I mean it's a grassroots effort, but they have never done a comprehensive needs assessment. And when we pushed the focus group, what they shared was, well, we kind of just watch what's happening. And we tried to encourage them to do that. Last thing about Douglas County is it is a sustainable initiative. And one of the reasons it's sustainable is because they have a coordinator. That coordinator is the sustainability coordinator for the city of Lawrence and the county of Douglas. And it is her full-time job to work on these types of initiatives. So I think that allows them to be very sustainable in the future. However, sometimes I think it does get in the way of building broad community support. I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek because my next statement is going to sound contradictory, in that the one thing that I think that they were very wise 10 years ago in Douglas County when they put together their first food policy council, and the positions and everything are spelled out, they very conscientiously made sure that small fruits and vegetable farmers were at the table, large commodity, whether they were beef, corn, wheat, soybeans, were at the table. The institutions such as the hospital and the jail were at the table, as well as local grocery stores and the school system. So they did do an excellent job of making sure everyone was at the table. That has developed broad community interest. The last one we did in Kansas was Rawlins County, Kansas, and Rawlins County is in our northwest section of the state, and they're a little unique in what they are doing there, in that in 2008, when the ag economy was very strained in Kansas as well as other states, there wasn't a lot of hope in Rawlins County, and an initiative was started which really brought the next generation of agriculture producers back to that community. It was a huge commodity agriculture community, so this required a mindset change. And as a result of that, they have developed a very unique local food system, which is broader than Rawlins County. And what has come of that is that they have developed what they refer to as the High Plains Food Cooperative. And the High Plains Food Cooperative loads a semi twice a month and takes CSA, or Community Supported Agriculture, to the Front Range in Colorado. It's at Denver to Colorado Springs area. They have some real water issues out there, and so they're actually doing CSAs, which is probably 180 miles at the most away from Rawlins County. And what they take is a little bit different than sometimes in other areas we think about. They load that semi with pork, beef, lamb, poultry, eggs, potatoes, and some microgreens. And so there's lots of protein that goes on that as it goes. But it's been very, very successful for that community in helping them bring back young families to their community. Then the last one I want to talk about is the UP of Michigan. And again, that is Michelle Walk, my colleague, her home community. And I did go there to do the interviewing with the focus groups. We actually did 2 focus groups in the UP of Michigan, one in Sault Ste. Marie and the other one in Marquette. And by and large, of all the communities that we studied, this group did the best job of true collaborative partnerships, actually doing their needs assessment, showing a strong community investment, and the key leaders were definitely aware of this initiative. The thing that I was impressed most is they do a food summit in at least 3 places in the UP every year to talk about what has happened the past year, celebrate that success, and make sure that their vision, mission, and goals are in line with where they're moving into the future. And so I can't emphasize it enough. We learned a lot of different things about community involvement and the importance of it. But this is the project that by and large demonstrated that strong commitment to community planning and the needs assessment piece of that. So from that, oh, and then I wanted to say, because sometimes life gets in the way of our professional work, the other community in in Michigan, and the 2 in Wisconsin's information we do not have yet. We certainly hope to be able to add that to this project in the near future. But but we do not have those at this time. So that's why if you try to add this up, it doesn't quite add up. But ultimately, the goal was to do 8 communities, 9 focus groups, because 2 in the UP. The recurring themes that we heard over and over and over again in every one of them was that the demand for locally grown food is greater than the production. And so that there is somehow a need to figure out how to produce more locally grown food and how we can distribute that locally grown food as well as have it available throughout the year, not just in the height of the growing season. And I'm going to back up one because I forgot to share one thing about the UP of Michigan, which I think is unique, in that they are also working on a online-based food distribution system, in that the producer can post what they have available that week. The consumer, whether it's an individual or an institution, can make the deal, and then it can be picked up at their aggregate sites, which is a personally owned business in the Sioux, as well as their community food co-op in Marquette. So sorry, Michelle, that I forgot that piece of it, because that's an integral piece, and I've shared that idea many, many times. So to go back to our recurring themes, again, demand is greater than production. A story we heard one time, and it goes into this mutual understanding is critical. It was a story that a hospital administrator said, I have green beans on my menu once every 10 days. I have to have green beans once every 10 days. I cannot serve green beans to the people at through our hospital food service 15 days in a row and not any time during the rest of the year. That's just one example. We heard it again related to tomatoes when we were in Allen County in Kansas. So that understanding of the business that the producer is in as well as the consumer is in is, I think, very critical component to the sustainability of this in the future. One community that we really wanted to do a focus group in but was not able to is Nevada, Missouri. And they are looking at, they have purchased a commercial kitchen in that area, and they're really looking at processing that food before it leaves to try to address that consistent supply. And we do have some hoop houses in Kansas, but still not a 12-month supply. The other piece that I thought was interesting, that was a recurring theme every time when we ask at the focus groups, why are you doing this? Why is your community even interested in local food? We consistently heard both of those next 2 bullets communicated at the same time. We're interested in the physical health of the people that live in our community, improving that, and we're also interested in improving the financial health of our community. So it was done from a business component as well as a personal component related to that physical health. Some of the best practices that we pulled out of this to share with communities in the future is it's important that all sectors of the community be represented. And to kind of go back to what we talked about earlier, I think it's very important that the community capitals or a similar model be used to make sure that you have representation from all of those different sectors come to the table when you start. Producers and consumers should be part of the initial conversation, and they should both be at the table at the same time. I think we all know one side or the other is probably going to start the initiative, but for long-term success, they both need to start talking early on in the process. Next one is a comprehensive assessment, and I think that comprehensive assessment of the community needs to look at the availability of locally grown food, as well as the demand for locally grown food. And then that basically can be used for producers to develop their business plans to move forward. We did, as I shared with the UP, we did identify that those that did not have an organized structure and or someone in charge um, struggled more. And many of these communities struggled for a few years before they realized that they really needed some kind of an organized structure to move that initiative forward. That celebrations were important. Celebrating the success of the food initiative locally, as well as celebrations within the community to raise the awareness that this initiative is going on. In Allen County, they talked about at the farmers market having salsa celebrations in July when the tomatoes were on, potato celebrations in that August timeframe when potatoes were, a green festival in the spring when the salad greens were coming on. And they had felt like they'd done that for just for 1 year, but they had felt like that had really raised the community awareness of this availability of local food. A mixed funding base, and we did find that most of the communities didn't have a very organized funding base. Many of them started as a result of a grant, and they had really not talked too much about how to continue that. I think the best example of the funding base probably is Douglas County in Kansas, which is Lawrence, and as I shared, they have a coordinator that is it's her job to coordinate all of this effort, as well as they have a full-time farmers market coordinator to not only look at grants, but there was city funding in there, there was county funding in there. In Brown County, they have a land trust, and there's some funding put to their initiative through the land trust, which was a little different way, but they don't have a very organized funding base for that. And then I think the last best practice that we found was really that it was important to have an engaged community. If the community is not engaged in this and supportive of this initiative, it's pretty hard to sustain that initiative. The products that are available for each of you that are on the webinar or would want them or will be available very soon, I'll let Rosa or Scott address that. But we did do just a one-page fact sheet that will be available. And then we did there is a local food systems document that talks about each one of these communities, as well as it has the attachments of the Wisconsin food profile to each of those. And those are electronic documents that are available. And then, as I shared earlier, a product that was not the intent, but it's been good in Kansas, is how this ties back to the Agriculture Marketing Service Project related to their ongoing grant system to fund farmers market promotion program and local food promotion program, and I think they really tie together very well. I'm going to close with this one. This is a sign that I snapped in one of the communities as I was going by their farmers market one day, and it kind of resonated with me, saying that we might be hungry if we don't support local food, but the producer will be hungry also if we don't buy his local food. And it goes back to that, why are we doing this? We're doing it for the health of the people that live in our communities, as well as the financial health of those businesses within our communities. With that, Scott, if there's any questions or comments, I'm certainly open to them, and we'll turn it back to you.
Well, thanks a lot for a great tour of some of the case studies that you've been working with. I put up the webinar evaluation form so if folks could click through that while we talk a little bit more, that would be great. One question that I had as people are thinking about their questions and typing them in is you said that demand is exceeding supply for the local foods. So you're telling me that they always sell out? So all of these places always sell out of all their product, or how does that express itself?
I think that would be a stretch to say it that way, Scott, because we'll use Iowa and Kansas, Allen County. Like they said, in July we take tomatoes home, but there's still demand for tomatoes in September. I really think the demand throughout the year is outstepping the supply. So it's that need, there is a huge need to either extend the growing season or figure out how to preserve some of the product to make it available throughout the year.
Okay, that helps. And Anne had a similar question, I guess. Um, you know, what about raising prices? But it sounds like it's more, it's really a problem in the off season.
It's really that, yes,
Yeah.
it's really an extended or dependable supply.
And Michelle had a comment on the question as well, in terms of, you know, um, there isn't, it's a so it's really consistency of supply. Uh, Christy had a question. Could you describe a bit more the process used to make sure the sectors in the community are represented across all areas?
I can do that. As far as the case studies that we looked at, I don't know that there was a proven way to make sure that they got everyone there. What Michelle and I shared with them and encouraged them to do is use the community capitals model. And those of you that are not familiar with the community capitals model, basically it's making sure that you have the financial sector represented, the built sector represented, the social sector, the human sector, the cultural sector, the environmental sector, or natural resources sector, as well as the political sector. And that's what I talked about in that Southern SARE produced the community-based food system assessment and planning in 2011, and that's based around those community capitals. I would think it would be safe to say that we found out communities could really use a lot of assistance in making sure the right people come to the table when these local food systems are either beginning or being reevaluated.
Okay, great. Anne had a question about how did you identify and invite participants to the focus groups?
And what we did on the focus groups was Michelle and I identified a key person in each of these communities, and then we encouraged them to invite 6 to 10 individuals within their community that had been involved in their local food initiative, and we asked that they try to make sure they represented a broad sector. And I think it's safe to say that they did, that was accomplished. In most of them, there was a elected official, whether it was a city or county commissioner. There was someone related to the social service agencies. There was someone representing the business sector. There were producers represented. There was like a community foundation or a representative from the financial sector. Some of the natural resources, they're usually represented. But we really left it up to the community to identify them.
And you mentioned a couple times the AMS project, so I used a screen share. Hopefully people can see that. My view isn't the same as yours, but hopefully that's coming through. And you can see there the list of all the state trainers. This is a project coordinated by the regional rural development centers to help individuals who want to apply for grants from the Ag Marketing Service to learn about how to put together a grant. And Trudy was one of the trainers, but there's a whole list of their for you. So if you are more interested in that project, you could be in touch with the trainer from your state. It is getting kind of late for this year, but you know, there's always next year. I think the grants are due pretty soon, or already due. I think they're already due.
They're due May
Do you remember,
14th,
Trudy?
Scott. May 14th.
May 14th.
But
Yeah.
I think that
So
money is guaranteed through 2018. So if, you know, you can start thinking for next year.
yeah, I think it's more of a next year question at this point. So anyway, that group of resources is there, and they are all affiliated with the different land grants throughout the country. So I just wanted to share that. And you can find that it's amsta.net will get you there. So, well, great. I'm not seeing any more typing or questions, so I think we've come to the end of our webinar here. But I really appreciate what you've done, and I think it's a good set of resources that maybe we could link to if the project, the AMSTA project, goes forward next year. So, thanks a lot.